Well, hello. How are you? This is Dave. I'll be your host. This is Dad Space, the podcast for dads by dads. And I love this song. Can you tell? Because every time I start this podcast, I fall in love with this music every time. I hope this makes you happy. I hope this music gives you a little smile, taps your toes, a little air drumming. How can you be sad with this song? How can you be sad? Welcome to Dad Space. Glad to have you here. You ready? All right, here we go. Let's jump in. So yeah, we're here. We're getting things ready. We just finished up 30 episodes in 30 days for the month of November. We focused on you, and we gave you an episode every day. So this is November 1st that I'm recording this, and it's going out on, check my page, December 9th. You're listening to this. This is when this will be live. This is how far out I have to record. And I do it all for you. I hope you... I do it for you. Yes, because I love doing this. And I thought, hey, a lot of the people who listen to the show, you're not podcasters. You don't understand what's happening behind the scenes here. So I want to give you a little context to Dad Space, share a little bit of my numbers with you. Are you curious? Like how many people actually listen to the show? And a little bit more about me and where we're going in the podcast and kind of I'm going to be wrapping up 2024 over the next few episodes this month, and I'm looking ahead to 2025. And I'm looking to see what else we can do for the show to help you as a dad. So I'm excited to talk about that and share some of my plans for the future as well. So let's dive into this. I thought I'd share with you this right away. I went in and looked at my stats. I'm going to share a little bit of my stats information. So when we create a podcast, we have a hosting site. That hosting site's kind of like a library that holds all our episodes, and then they distribute it to Apple and Spotify and Amazon and all those places, YouTube. It goes out to everyone from my host. They're kind of like they're the bucket where I put my episodes in, and it's distributed from there. So in that, I get some information that comes back to me that kind of gives me a high level information about who listens to the show and where you might be listening to the show. So I wanted to share a little bit with you about that. So here's a list of the countries that Dad Space is being listened to currently as of November 1st, 2024, like last month when I recorded this. So I wanted to give you this. And so this is my computer friend. He's going to help rattle off the list of countries. And when you hear the name of your country, I would love for you to please stand wherever you are. Well, if you're standing, great, you're already ahead of the group. And then put your hand on your heart and then start singing your own national anthem or whatever you want to do. Salute, wave a flag. But when you hear the name of your country, please do me the honor of acknowledging the fact that you've been identified here on the podcast as of November 1st, 2024. So here's the list of the countries. And again, the simple ask, stand where you are and acknowledge your country and wave your flags or do whatever you do in your country. But thank you for listening. And here's the list. Already? Okay, here we go.
Dave, here is a list of the listeners and where they are listening to the Dad Space podcast. United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Germany, Singapore, Spain, Australia, Mexico, Philippines, Brazil, and Guatemala.
So there you go. That's the list so far as of November 1st, 2024. If you didn't hear the name of your country, then keep listening. It's going to show up eventually in the stats. It's all kind of like magic that happens behind the scenes. But what else? What else can I tell you about the podcast and who's listening and where? I'm seeing that most people are listening on a mobile app. So 46% of you listen on a mobile app. 36% of you listen on a desktop browser. That's interesting. And 3% of you use a smart home device. Well, that's interesting. 27% of you listen on Android, and 19% listen on Apple iOS. Interesting. Okay, so we got to get some more Apple users in the house. I see you're listening on Windows and Mac and Amazon. So that's pretty good. The top listening apps that I'm seeing, Chrome is at 20%. So that would be your online, I guess. Spotify's number 3 at 13%. Apple's down at 10%. iHeartRadio, Pandora, Firefox, Podbean, Player FM, AntennaPod, Castbox, Podcast Republic, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Pocket Casts, Facebook, wow, Facebook, JioSaavn, hey, that's our friends in India, even Winamp. I didn't even know that Winamp was a thing still. I remember Winamp. Do you remember Winamp? Apparently someone's listening to the podcast on Winamp. If that's you, then congratulations. You just won the most random prize ever. So that's pretty cool. And the top country, as you heard listed there, that was in order of how many listens. 69%, 68.9 are from the U.S. So to my American friends, from a Canadian here north of your border, I want to say thank you for listening and making the U.S. population number 1. Number 2 is Canada. Number 3 is the UK. Number 4 is Germany. And number 5, bringing up my top 5, is Singapore. So to my friends in Singapore, oh my gosh, thank you for listening to Dad Space. This is so cool. And it's interesting because when I go back and I start looking at what's happening in the podcasts, I'm seeing my total for downloads and seeing what's happening in the world. It's interesting to kind of see some of the more listened to episodes of Dad Space currently, as I look at my dashboard here, is the epidemic of loneliness for men. And it's the friendship recession episode. That was back on May 13th. Securing your family's future, good debt versus bad debt. That's on May 20th. That one's doing really well. And some of my guests that have really kind of stood out, Darren J. Brooks, There's No One Here for You. Also authors Susan Schwartz and The Absent Father Effect on Daughters. That one's doing really good. Corey Yates, No One Is Smarter Than All of Us. And Corey Jenks, the two Corys. I guess I'm a dad now. Those episodes are doing really well. And I guess the other one, too, to bring up is the Brian Hellig, the awe-inspiring saga of his son's micro-preemie birth. That's a really amazing episode. Just hearing that story, that's really cool. So that's kind of the whole, what is the most frequently listened to episodes right now. That's one component that I'm seeing on my dashboard. The other thing I like looking at, too, is I have a big map on my hosting site. I'm using Captivate.fm for this. That's my host. Hi, Captivate. Nice to see you. Captivate gives me this map of the world, and I can click on each country and continent and all that, and it'll break it down into the state or province or whatever region, and then I can even go down to the cities. So right now, for the U.S., I just clicked on the U.S. map because, again, that's like my highest listenership is coming from my great friends in the U.S. California, wow, is like 40% of my listens come from California. So somebody there loves Dad Space, and I want to shout out California because I have never been there, but it looks, I can't understand how any place can be gorgeous all the time. Like the people and the weather, both. I don't understand how that works. I live in Canada. It's cold. I got my fireplace on right now. I'm like freezing. So California, I would love to come see you, and maybe, 40% of you in California, we could get together and have coffee or something. That'd be fun. Texas is number 2. Virginia's number 3. Minnesota's number 4. And Wisconsin is number 5. That's my top 5. So that's pretty cool. And then if I go into my cities and I go to California, here we go. So Los Angeles is 17% of my audience. That's pretty amazing. So that's pretty cool. So if you're living in Los Angeles and you listen to Dad Space, I just want to say hi. That's pretty amazing. And then I go back and click on the map for Canada, and Ontario is 90% of my listens. Wow. Hi, Ontario. That's where I live, and that's pretty cool. Alberta, I think I know who this is. Alberta is like 6% of my listens. Quebec is 3%. Hello, Quebec. Bonjour. And BC is at just over 1% of my audience is from BC. So that's amazing. So let's click on Ontario then. I'm excited to know what this is about. Okay, where are you, Ontario? You're in Ontario. 18% of my audience is in Toronto. I have another, just slightly under that is in Scarborough, Niagara Falls, and then we jump over into Calgary. That's my next one. Hi, Calgary. We were just there, the Grand Theater. It's gorgeous. We did Pod Summit in Calgary. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What a great place that is. Drayton Valley. I think I know who this is. So, hello to you. I know you're listening. So, hi, Drayton Valley. And then we're into Montreal. We're in Brantford, and I think I know who that is. Vancouver. Hi, Vancouver. Richmond Hill. Sarnia. That's amazing. And then Saint Adele in Quebec. So, hello, bonjour. Hi, Canada. Nice to have you here. This is so cool. So that's what I love. We get this information that comes back to us as hosts on the show, and it does help us to kind of see where people are listening. And I also get to know how many people are downloading an episode and how many people are unique listeners. And that's basically who's coming to the show for the first time. And I find that really interesting. So I can see we took a little bit of a break around August and the beginning of September. That's when my wife and I had purchased a rental property and we were doing renovations. So we were tied up and away from the microphone for that period of time. And I can see there's this big valley that happened in my stats. And that's just simply Dave wasn't here. So thank you for anyone that stuck through that period of time. But we've come out of that valley. And think of like Top Gun when the plane takes off and then does a complete steep takeoff. That's what we've done. The podcast is just growing and growing and growing because of you. And that's again why we wanted to do the 30 episodes in 30 days in November, just to kind of get the things going back and get back in the motion of doing these again. So we're going to continue doing weekly episodes every Monday. They go at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So wherever you are in the world, doesn't matter. You can listen at any time you want, but that's where we're getting back to that part. And I want to throw this out too while I'm thinking about it and chatting with you, is if you're a dad and you're like, man, I wonder what it'd be like to be on a podcast and just talk about my dad's story. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's my offer to you and why I think you should come on this show. You're like, Dave, I don't have anything to sell. I'm not an author. I'm not anybody that's super famous. I really don't have anything to promote. Then you are the perfect guest for the show. Do you understand that I am not super famous? I don't have a book. I have nothing to promote either. Well, there you go. You and I could have a great conversation. I see Dad Space as a way to collect legacy. I'm on a mission to collect people in my life. I want to collect connections with great people. And I use a podcast to do that. I get to talk to people that I would have never met if I had not had this show. So I'm offering to you to come on and record an episode that could be a living legacy for you and your family to come on and talk about your dad journey. Maybe your kids are young. They can hear your discussion on Dad Space long into the future and press play on this when they're at college and they're missing you and they want to hear your voice. I would love to hear the sound of my dad's voice. I lost my dad over 20 years ago to cancer, and he fought hard, but it just took him fast. And I would give anything right now to be able to press play and hear his voice. So I see podcasting as a legacy play. I see podcasting as a way to capture my thoughts in the moment, whether I'm having a good day or a bad day, whether I'm struggling or succeeding. And what am I learning as a dad in this process? So if you're like, that does sound interesting, I promise you You come on my show, you come on Dad Space, we're going to have a great conversation about your dad story, and we're going to help somebody. This is not a podcast where you and I get together just to talk and chat and we ignore everyone that's listening to the show. I want you and I to collaborate together to help a dad. Okay? So think of somebody's fallen into a river or a lake. You and I join hands, reach down, and the two of us help that person out of the lake. They're stranded, they're stuck, they need help. If you and I join forces, we can do more than one of us can do on their own. So that's why I created Dad Space. I would love, 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 love to have you come on Dad Space and be a part of this. So please, consider it, think about it, and let's get you onto the show, okay? Because this show only succeeds when we help a dad. And that's my main focus. So I want you to think about that, all right? So what's coming in the future for Dad Space? I'm curious to get your feedback as a listener to the show. As you've heard, I can see where you're listening. I can see what episodes you listen to. I can see what episodes you don't listen to. I can see all that information. I can also see how long you listen to an episode before you bounce, before you leave. So it tells me what episodes are doing well and what episodes I could do better, what guests you really like and what guests you don't seem to like. I see all that when I look at my stats. But I want you to understand, I don't create my episodes to get stats. I don't create my episodes to get numbers. I create my episodes to help a person. So if one single solitary person on this planet pressed play on an episode, whether there's a guest or not, and we help them, then all these stats really don't matter because we're here for one person. That's the goal for the show. I want to help one dad, one man, somewhere in the world to realize you're not alone. You're not doing this by yourself. And that there's other men out there that really want to encourage you through their stories, their lessons, but also resources and tools and connections and community that'll help you as a dad. So that's why the show exists. I don't do it for the stats. I do it for you. And that's truly it. You notice I don't have commercials. Why do I not have commercials? Everybody wants to make money from a podcast. It seemed to be a thing. I find commercials annoying. I find commercials break up the content. I feel like they're a distraction. So I don't do commercials. I do have my Buy Me a Coffee. If you want to support the show, there's a link on dadspace.ca website if you want to do that. But I don't even really talk about that very often, and I probably should. With all that money that comes in, I try to reinvest it into dads. I try to reinvest it into others. I do have a job, so I really don't need that donation as often. But at the same time, I know that people reach out to the show and they're like, Dave, we really love what you do. How can we support you? So there's that on dadspace.ca. That's a way to help keep the lights on, I guess, for Dad Space. And I appreciate every single donation. Thank you for that. As I look for Dad Space in the future, I'm looking towards how we can build in adjacent to the podcast. I love the podcast. I love my guests. I love the topics. I love being here with you. But I'm thinking there's got to be another piece to this that helps you beyond the podcast. I don't know if that's a newsletter. I don't know if that's like a community thing. I don't know if that's giving you more resources, or I'm really not sure what to do next for 2025. So I'm asking you, over the course of the next few weeks here as we close off 2024, what is it that you, as a listener of this show, of Dad Space, what are you finding you're missing in this? It could be related to the podcast itself, or it could be related to what the podcast is not giving you. I'm really curious as to what the podcast is not providing for you, so that we can look at that and maybe go deeper on that part. So that's my question. I'll give you an example. I host another show called the How to Podcast series, and it's teaching people how to do what I'm doing with you right now, but helping people who have never done this and teaching them podcasting. Howtopodcast.ca is where you can find out more about that. And to complement the show, I created a meetup group on meetup.com, and we get together now twice a week to connect with other podcasters and do podcasting in community. Now I'm thinking, okay, like that's $50 a month to have that. I could have another meetup group on meetup.com specifically for dads. And dads from around the world can join. It doesn't cost you anything. It costs me $50 a month. But I'm willing to invest that if you find value in that, and then create meetup groups for dads where we could just get on and talk about dad stuff. It doesn't have to be super serious. Doesn't have to be heavy. It could just be community. Hey, you're in Connecticut? I'm in Connecticut. Hey, you're in Maine? I'm in Maine. You're in California? I'm in BC. Okay, well, that's good. Anyways, we can all connect with each other and just talk dad stuff in a safe environment where there's no judgment, there's no sales, nobody's trying to sell you anything. It's completely free for you. I'm toying with the idea of having a dad space meetup. Now, what day of the week, what time of day, what time zone? We have people, you heard, we have people listening around the world. So it's going to be really hard to pick a time and date that works for the majority of the listeners. But I'm really open and willing to do whatever serves you. Beyond the podcast, I'm still going to do 1 episode a week. And in November, 30 episodes in 30 days. But what else could we do adjacent to the podcast that serves you? I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to set it up. And I'm willing to host it. I'm willing to be there to create it. Whatever serves you, I'm willing to do. And I'd love to get your feedback. dadspace.ca. Reach out to me. I don't bite. I'm not scary. I'm quite calm, and I'm quite a nice fellow. And I'd love to meet you. So dadspace.ca, if you have ideas, what can we do adjacent to the podcast that would serve you better? And if you're like, Dave, I love the show, I'm just happy with the show, then I'm happy to do that. It's just this nagging feeling, this little tap on the shoulder that says, Dave, if we do this one thing more, we can help more people. We can help more dads. We can help more men. Just coming off of these 30 episodes in 30 days in November, just realizing how many great resources, how many amazing people are out there, how many opportunities there are to help men. And I want to do whatever I can with as long as I can with the breath in my body and the time that I have to serve you. And I hope that's where you see my heart in all of this. Again, I don't have anything to sell you. I don't have a book. I don't have a prod program. I don't have a coaching thing. I have none of these things. And it's like, every time I listen to a podcast where they have all those things, I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm kind of missing out on the boat here a little bit. But again, I'm not here to sell you anything. I just want to create this space. That's why it's called Dad Space. I wanted to create a space for you. And as a empty nesting dad, 3 adult children out of the house, I have a little bit more time on my hands to maybe help a younger dad who's struggling through all the different stages of being a dad. And maybe I can give you some perspective from an outside point of view that might help you to avoid some of those pitfalls, right? So think of if you ride a bike and you see these guys riding down the road on their Harleys and stuff, and there's sport bikes and there's all the different types of bikes. I do love when I'm in my car, I'm watching, and I watch when 2 bikes are coming toward each other, going to pass each other, going the opposite way, how they signal each other, quick little 2 fingers or little whatever. And I like how they acknowledge each other. And I also like when a bike is following behind a bike in front of them, and the bike in front of them sees a pothole or an obstacle on the road, something that could cause damage or cause an accident, they point it out. And the tapping on the helmet for, that there's a cop ahead, that kind of stuff. They signal each other. And I just love that because it's like about community in that moment where everybody's helping each other. They're acknowledging each other when they go passing each other in opposite directions, and they help each other if they notice something ahead, which could help the rider behind them. They're always trying to signal and demonstrate community because the biking community is a tight-knit community. So I love what they do. And I'm thinking, why don't we have that for dads? Why don't we have this community that signals each other and acknowledges each other and is thinking of each other all the time instead of thinking of ourselves? It doesn't matter what bike you ride. It doesn't matter where you ride. The biking community is strong. And it doesn't matter what type of dad you are, where you are in this world. We need a community that acknowledges each other, that thinks of each other, that points out distractions, pitfalls, and things that could hurt you as a dad. And I want to create that world here on Dad Space. So, to that end, I'm asking, what can we do more of in Dad Space to help you as a listener so that we can grow this space? And I'm ready and willing to go anywhere that serves you. And that's kind of my focus for 2025. I want to grow something that helps you. So, if you want to help me in my quest, it's a daunting quest, I know. But over the next 4 weeks or so, I would love to hear from you. dadspace.ca. You can email me. You can leave me a SpeakPipe message, which is an online voice recorder. You click the button, you talk, and then I get an email with your voice attached to it. And then maybe if I get voice responses, I'll put them all together in an episode to recap your thoughts. So let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where do we go next here in Dad Space. We've been doing this for a while. We're up to 157 episodes. So we're going to be getting close to 160 soon. So I'm putting it out there. How can I serve you better? How can I continue to serve you? And I'm just looking for your feedback. dadspace.ca. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you everyone for listening. I really appreciate you being here. It means so much to me. And I'm looking forward to 2025 and how we can work together in the future. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to the show. Talk soon here on Dad Space. Hey, thanks for listening to Dad Space. Thanks for hanging out to the end of the podcast. That's a great sign to wherever you're listening to this podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, fill in the blank, that this was a good podcast to send people to. So simply by listening to this point of the podcast, you're helping the show grow. So good on you. Thanks for helping us grow Dad Space. If you want to help us fill our cups over at Dad Space, head over to dadspace.ca. dadspace.ca, simple website, right? dadspace.ca. You can fill up our coffee cup, which helps us then to keep moving forward with the podcast and use our Buy Me a Coffee link over at dadspace.ca. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you for coming back. And thank you for sharing. Because the more people, more dads we can help, the better. We're all here to help each other grow in community. That's what it's all about. And without you, the podcast is pointless. There's no reason to do any of this. So you being here means everything. See you at dadspace.ca. Take care.